Hi guys, I'm Tando Kutu and welcome to, oh yes, my YouTube channel. Okay, I need to, yeah, this is my second take because I actually forgot to say welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm just still getting used to the fact that we now have a channel. So please join the She Can community. Hit like, subscribe, share the content if you like it. So let's keep this community growing and just keep empowering each other as women. So I really hope you're gonna enjoy what we're gonna be talking about today. So it's just a continuation of what we actually started last week, speaking about fear and ways in which we can stop ourselves from being so afraid of demons and mountains and things that sometimes are not even really there. So, okay, let's get into it. This week's video is a continuation of last week's episode about fear, and it's based on a book that I was reading, a book that I'm always reading, a book that is my go-to for everything, and that is our Bible. We sometimes tend to say life doesn't come with a manual. I think this book comes quite close. I'll also be referencing a devotional by Gregory Dickow. It's Fasting from Wrong Thinking. So if you guys want to check it out, read through it, go through it. It's actually quite amazing. So let's get right into it. Fear. So today we are fasting from the phrase, I am afraid. Guys, we're not afraid. I need to discuss this last week. We're not afraid. Fear is at the root of about every negative thing that happens in our lives. I mean, we are afraid of being rejected. We are afraid of being alone. We are afraid of running out of money. We are afraid of our spouse leaving us or not even finding a spouse. So many things that we are afraid of. But ultimately, fear is rooted in the belief that God's word is not true. And what I mean by this, you have a choice in life. Are you going to believe fear or trust in fear that everything will go wrong? Or do you choose to rather believe in God and God's promises over your life? Because that's ultimately what fear is. You are choosing to believe the negative above God's promises for your life. For example, the fear of not having enough is rooted in not believing Philippians 4 verse 19, which reads as follows. God will supply according to his riches. So if you believe that God will supply your needs according to his riches, then the fear of not having enough should go away. So you see how what I mean, that it's either you choose to believe the promise or you choose to believe the latter. It's up to you. But the promise, trust me guys, it feels so much better. Why don't we rather meditate on the fact that God's word is true? John 17 verse 7 says, thy word is true. And what God is saying here is that whether you believe it, whether you see it, whether you've experienced it, it doesn't change the fact. And the fact is, his word is true. Again, we come back to, what do you believe? Number 2 would be to consider God's good track record. If you look at 1 Kings 8:56, it reads as follows, every word has come true of all his good promise. So fear leaves if you rely on something that can't fail. And God's word doesn't fail. God has never failed to fulfill his promise. I mean, there are over 1,000 prophecies in the Bible that God made before they even happened. So that in itself shows you that God's word doesn't fail. God's promises don't fail. So Let us choose to rely on something that cannot fail. Again, once you do this, fear falls away. Number 3 would be accept the truth that what we fear comes upon us. Job 3 verse 25, Job feared that his kids would curse God. And what did they do? They cursed God. So when we think and let fear consume us, those things that we fear is what we end up manifesting and what will become true and what will become of our lives. So when you realize that fear has the power to produce negative results, then I think it's time that we stop letting it control our lives. I mean, when a child learns that fire burns, they don't go back the next day and place their hand on a fire or hot stove. So I think it's time that we treat fear like that fire. We've learned, we know now that what we think we manifest. So if we're gonna keep on thinking negative things, we mustn't get shocked when our life then becomes negative. There is a promise from God's word for every need that you will ever have. Let me repeat that. There is a promise in God's word for every need that you will ever have. There are over 7,000 promises in the Bible. So what that means is there's over 7,000 solutions for problems that you and I have faced, are facing, and are still going to face. Isn't that comforting though? Like, yeah, that is comforting to know. Example, there's promises in Psalms 91. I know a lot of us, when COVID hit, everyone was just meditating on Psalms 91. Psalms 91, Psalms 91. And that verse alone, it delivers you from fear of evil, sickness, tragedy. It comforted a lot of us. It got us through some of the darkest times we've faced in a long time. So again, hold on to his promise. There is a promise in the Bible for every need that you will ever have. Next point is pause and dwell on the fact that God is with you. God's presence is the secret to a fear-free life. So fear is a sense that God is not there. So when we have fear, it means we don't trust God, we don't believe he's there, or we are separated from him in some way. So the moment we bring God into our space, the moment we bring God into our lives, the moment we work on having a relationship with God, you will see that the fear will be gone. It won't have space. It won't be, not gone, but it just won't have space in your life, because your life is filled with God's love and God's promises, and you've just filled yourself with your relationship with God. In essence, what I want to leave with you guys is, you have a choice, and the choice is simple. Do you have faith in God, or do you have faith in your fears? It's those two options, and you need to choose to not have faith in your fears, because that's what's going to cripple you. I've been there. I put faith in my fears. A few years ago, I was in a situation in a work environment where, due to the circumstances at the time, I had a real fear of losing my job. Yeah, my job was being threatened in some way. I'm not going to get into the details of that. So my job was threatened, and I got to that point where fear consumed me so much. And it consumed me to a point where I actually had a stroke. That's how stressed and depressed I was of this fear that had just taken over me, because I had made my job the center of my life. And the fear of losing it, at that point, I felt like I was losing me, I was losing my identity, then I was also losing an income, I was going to lose my car, I was going to lose the flat I was renting. And honestly, losing a job is really not that big, or I don't know, for lack of a better word. But what fear did was it made the problem seem so much bigger than it actually really was. You know, the way I was feeling and thinking, it was almost as if I'm going to die if I lose this job. And at that time, I didn't even have dependents. I didn't have kids. No one was depending on me, but fear had taken over. So I really felt like if I lose this, it's the end of the world for me. And that's what fear does. And I ended up in hospital. I had a mild stroke, TIA, and it was one of the biggest turning points in my life when I realized the damage that fear can do. So guys, when I say choose not to have faith in your fear, I'm being very serious. I'm speaking from experience, guys. Let us step away from letting fear consume us. It is dangerous. It is life-threatening. So now I'm like the princess of doom. But anyway, I just had to put that out there. But with God's grace and with God's love, I recovered. I'm here. There was no permanent damage, because funny enough, during the process of me having that mild stroke / TIA, I remember when I was getting into the hospital, at that point when it was being disabled and going through that and choosing God, I found myself, as they were pushing me into the MRI machine, I remember all I was thinking was, God, help me, God, help me, God, help me, God, help me. So when I was met with fear and God, I ultimately chose God, and He came through for me, and He will come through for you. And those who know me personally and know the story of my life know how many times God has come through for me. So if you're doubting and you feel like you've never experienced God fulfilling His promises, look this way. I am a living testimony of His grace, His love, His favor, Him fulfilling His promise. So guys, that's it for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, like, subscribe, share, comment. Let's have this conversation. Have a great, I don't know, no, I can't say have a great day. Okay guys, I'm still getting used to this YouTube thing, but thank you for watching.